Hey guys, welcome back. We are reading Mark chapters 5 and 6 today. And I know I had said I might change it up and post some extra content that's not just reading the Bible on Wednesdays or Fridays, but I haven't decided what I want to go into next. So we're just going to stick to Mark. There will be more content other than just reading the Bible. I do want to start adding more discussions and more things onto the channel. But like I said, I'm not really sure what direction I'm going to take next. So I'm going to pray about it. Going to see what God tells me. And we're going to go from there because I want to have good conversations with you guys. I want to give you guys more than just reading the Bible and going over it. Not that that's not important, not that that's not engaging and interesting, but there's more to the point of this channel. Maybe I'll record what I want to get out of this channel video. I don't know. But regardless, we're going to read Mark chapters 5 and 6 today. They're a little bit longer, so I think that's a perfect way to end the week. So let's go ahead and dive in. They came to the other side of the sea, to the region of the Gerasenes. When Jesus got out of the boat, immediately a man from the tombs with an unclean spirit met him. And the man lived in the tombs, and no one could bind him anymore, not even with chains. For he had often been bound with shackles for the feet and with chains, and he tore apart the chains and broke the shackles into pieces, and no one was strong enough to subdue and tame him. Night and day he was constantly screaming and shrieking among the tombs and on the mountains, and cutting himself with sharp stones. Seeing Jesus from a distance, he ran up and bowed down before him in homage. Screaming with a loud voice, he said, "What business do we have in common with each other, Jesus, Son of the Most High God? I implore you by God, swear to me, do not torment me." For Jesus had been saying to him, "Come out of that man, you unclean spirit." He was asking him, "What is your name?" And the man replied, "My name is Legion, for we are many." And he began begging him repeatedly not to send them out of the region. Now there was a large herd of pigs grazing there on the mountain. And the demons begged him, "Send us to the pigs, so that we may go into them." Jesus gave them permission, and the unclean spirits came out of the man and entered the pigs. The herd, numbering about 2,000, rushed down the steep bank into the sea, and they were drowned one after the other in the sea. The herdsmen tending the pigs ran away and reported it in the city and in the country, and the people came to see what had happened. They came to Jesus and saw the man who had been demon-possessed sitting down, clothed, and in his right mind, the man who had previously had the legion of demons, and they were frightened. Those who had seen it described in detail to the people what had happened to the demon-possessed man, and told them all about the pigs. So the people began to beg with Jesus to leave their region. As he was stepping into the boat, the Gentile man who had been demon-possessed was begging to go with him, asking that he might go with him as a disciple. Jesus did not let him come, but instead said to him, "Go home to your family and tell them all the great things that the Lord has done for you and how he has had mercy on you." So he obeyed and went away and began to publicly proclaim in the Decapolis, or the region of the 10 Hellenistic cities, all the great things that Jesus had done for him. And all the people were astonished. When Jesus had again crossed over in the boat to the other side of the sea, a large crowd gathered around him, and so he stayed by the seashore. One of the synagogue officials named Jairus came up to him, and seeing him, fell at his feet and begged anxiously with him, saying, "My little daughter is at the point of death. Please come and lay your hands on her, so that she will be healed and live." And Jesus went with him, and a large crowd followed him and pressed in all around him from all sides. A woman in the crowd had suffered from a hemorrhage for 12 years, and had endured much suffering at the hands of many physicians. She had spent all that she had and was not helped at all, but instead became worse. She had heard reports about Jesus, and she came up behind him in the crowds and touched his outer robe, for she thought, "If I just touch his clothing, I will get well." Immediately her flow of blood was dried up, and she felt in her body and knew without any doubt that she was healed of her suffering. Immediately Jesus, recognizing in himself that power had gone out from him, turned around in the crowd and asked, "Who touched my clothes?" The disciples said to him, "You see the crowd pressing in all around you from all sides, and you ask, 'Who touched me?'" Still, he kept looking around to see the woman who had done it. And the woman, though she was afraid and trembling, aware of what had happened to her, came and fell down before him and told him the whole truth. Then he said to her, "Daughter, your faith, your personal trust and confidence in me has restored to you your health. Go in peace and be permanently healed from your suffering." While he was still speaking, some people came from the synagogue's official's house, saying to Jairus, "Your daughter has died. Why bother the teacher any longer?" Overhearing what was being said, Jesus said to the synagogue official, "Do not be afraid, only keep believing in me and my power." And he allowed no one to go with him as witness, except Peter and James and John, the brother of James. They came to the house of the synagogue official, and he looked with understanding at the uproar and commotion, and the people weeping and wailing and mourning. When he had gone in, he said to them, "Why make a commotion and weep? The child has not died, but is sleeping." They began laughing scornfully at him, because they knew the child was dead. But he made them all go outside, and took along the child's father and mother, and his own 3 companions, and entered the room where the child was. Taking the child's hand, he said tenderly to her, "Talitha cum," which translated from Aramaic means, "Little girl, I say to you, get up." The little girl immediately got up and began to walk, for she was 12 years old. And immediately they who witnessed the child's resurrection were overcome with great wonder and utter amazement. He gave strict orders that no one should know about this, and he told them to give her something to eat. And now we're moving on to Mark chapter 6. Jesus left there and came to his hometown of Nazareth, and his disciples followed him. When the Sabbath came, he began to teach in the synagogue, and many who listened to him were astonished, saying, "Where did this man get these things, this knowledge and spiritual insight? What is this wisdom, this confident understanding of the Scripture that has been given to him, and such miracles as these performed by his hands? Is this not the carpenter, the son of Mary, and the brother of James, and Joseph, and Judas, and Simon? Are his sisters not here with us?" And they were deeply offended by him, and their disapproval blinded them to the fact that he was anointed by God as the Messiah. Jesus said to them, "A prophet is not without honor or respect, except in his hometown and among his relatives and in his own household." And he could not do a miracle there at all because of their unbelief, except that he laid his hands on a few sick people and healed them. He wondered at their unbelief. And he was going around in the villages teaching. And he called the 12 disciples and began to send them out as his special messengers 2 by 2, and gave them authority and power over the unclean spirits. He told them to take nothing for the journey except a mere walking stick, no bread, no traveler's bag, no money in their belts, but to wear sandals, and he told them not to wear 2 tunics. And he told them, "Wherever you go into a house, stay there until you leave that town. Any place that does not welcome you or listen to you, when you leave there, shake the dust off the soles of your feet as a testimony against them, breaking all ties with them because they rejected my message." So they went out and preached that men should repent, that is, think differently, recognize sin, turn away from it, and live changed lives. And they were casting out many demons, and were anointing with oil many who were sick and healing them. King Herod Antipas heard about this, for Jesus' name and reputation had become well known. People were saying, "John the Baptist has been raised from the dead, and that is why these miraculous powers are at work in him." But others were saying, "He is Elijah." And others were saying, "It is a prophet, like one of the prophets of old." But when Herod heard of it, he kept saying, "John, whom I beheaded, has risen from the dead." For Herod himself sent guards and had John arrested and shackled in prison because of Herodias, the wife of his half-brother Philip, because Herod had married her. For John had been saying to Herod, "It is not lawful under Mosaic law for you to have your brother's wife." Herodias had a grudge against John and wanted to kill him, but she could not, because Herod feared John, knowing that he was a righteous and holy man, and he continually kept him safe. When he heard John speak, he was very perplexed, but he enjoyed listening to him. An opportune time finally came for Herodias. Herod, on his birthday, gave a banquet for his officials, nobles, courtiers, and military commanders, and the leading men of Galilee. Now Salome, the daughter of Herodias, came in and danced for the men. She pleased and beguiled Herod and his dinner guests. And the king said to the girl, "Ask me for whatever you want, and I will give it to you." And he swore to her, "Whatever you ask me, I will give it to you, up to half my kingdom." She went out and said to her mother, "What shall I ask for?" And Herodias replied, "The head of John the Baptist." And she rushed back to the king and asked, saying, "I want you to give me right now the head of John the Baptist on a platter." The king was deeply grieved, but because of his oaths and his dinner guests, who might have regarded him as weak, he was unwilling to break his word and refuse her. So the king immediately sent for an executioner and commanded him to bring back John's head. And he went and had John beheaded in prison, and brought back his head on a platter and gave it to the girl, and the girl gave it to her mother. When the disciples heard about this, they came and took away John's body and laid it in a tomb. The apostles who had been sent out on a mission gathered together with Jesus and told him everything that they had done and taught. He said to them, "Come away by yourselves to a secluded place and rest a little while." For there were many people who were continually coming and going, and they could not even find time to eat. And they went away by themselves in the boat to a secluded place. Many people saw them leaving and recognized them and ran there together on foot from all the surrounding cities and got there ahead of them. When Jesus went ashore, he saw a large crowd waiting, and he was moved with compassion for them because they were like sheep without a shepherd, lacking guidance. And he began to teach them many things. When the day was nearly done, his disciples came to him and said, "This is an isolated place, and it is already late. Send the crowds away so that they may go into the surrounding countryside and villages and buy themselves something to eat." But he replied, "You give them something to eat." And they asked him, "Shall we go and buy 200 denarii worth of bread and give it to them to eat?" He said to them, "How many loaves do you have? Go look." And when they found out, they said, 5 loaves and 2 fish. Then Jesus commanded them all to sit down by groups on the grass. They sat down in groups of hundreds and of 50s, so that the crowd resembled an orderly arrangement of colorful garden plots. Taking the 5 loaves and the 2 fish, he looked up to heaven and said a blessing of praise and thanksgiving to the Father. Then he broke the loaves and repeatedly gave them to the disciples to set before the people. And he divided up the 2 fish among them all. They all ate and were satisfied, and the disciples picked up 12 full baskets of broken pieces of the loaves and of the fish. Those who ate the loaves were 5,000 men, not counting the women and children. Jesus immediately insisted that his disciples get into the boat and go ahead of him to the other side to Bethsaida, while he was dismissing the crowd. After he said goodbye to them, he went to the mountain to pray. Now when evening had come, the boat was in the middle of the sea, and Jesus was alone on the land. Seeing the disciples straining at the oars, because the wind was against them, at about the 4th watch of the night, 3 to 6 a.m., he came to them, walking on the sea, and acted as if he intended to pass by them. But when they saw him walking on the sea, they thought it was a ghost, and cried out in horror, for they all saw him and were shaken and terrified. But he immediately spoke with them and said, "Take courage. It is I am. Stop being afraid." Then he got into the boat with them, and the wind ceased as if exhausted by its own capacity, and they were completely overwhelmed because they had not understood the miracle of the loaves, how it revealed the power and deity of Jesus. But in fact, their heart was hardened, being oblivious and indifferent to his amazing works. When they had crossed over the sea, they reached the land of Gennesaret and anchored at the shore. They got out of the boat, and immediately people recognized him and ran throughout that surrounding countryside and began to carry around on their mats those who were sick to any place where they heard he was. And whenever he came into villages or cities or the countryside, they were laying the sick in the marketplaces and pleading with him to allow them just to touch the fringe or tassel with a blue cord of his robe, and all who touched it were healed. And those were chapters 5 and 6 of the Gospel of Mark, getting to see some already very familiar stories. The healing of the woman with blood, unfortunately the beheading of John the Baptist. I do like that Mark includes a little bit more information about King Herod and Herodias and her daughter Salome. I like that, it's just a little bit of a different context, if you will. And of course, the 5,000 are fed, which is one of the most prominent miracles, in my opinion, because it shows that God loves humble beginnings, that he will take the very little that you have in life and he will do incredible things with it if you let him, if you just bring it to him and say, I trust you and I thank you for what you can do with this. Jesus has a really good example there. And then of course, Jesus walking on the water. Now in Matthew and in John, it talks about Peter walking on the water. I think it's Matthew specifically that discusses it. It's not included here. And I've already decided we're going to kind of do a gospel overview video after we finish the Gospel of Mark. So we will definitely discuss that in depth at a later point. But it's recorded in multiple gospels at this point that he walked on a sea while the storm was raging and the weather was crazy. And when he got into the boat, he calmed everything just immediately. Hush, be still, be muzzled. And then, the people flocking to him to have their friends healed, their family healed, themselves healed. It's an incredible thing to read about. And I'm sure it was incredible to witness these people just coming to him and him healing them because they had faith that he could do it if it was his will. And it was his will. And I'm sure there were instances where he didn't heal people, not because they didn't have the faith, but because they served a different purpose in their illness or in their sickness or disability. The Chosen makes a really good point of pointing that out with the character Little James, who I believe is supposed to be, he's named in the disciples, but I know he's not the brother of John, the beloved, John the Revelator. That's James, son of Zebedee. But in The Chosen, they do a really good point of kind of explaining that. And it's a really beautiful scene. Again, if you don't like the show, that's okay, but you should look that scene up because it's pretty moving. It's pretty interesting. And I can say in my own life, there's been instances where God could have healed me of many different things, but he hasn't. And it's not because I lack faith. I think it's that my current situation, my current ailments or illnesses, whatever you want to call it, they serve a purpose in my testimony as they are right now. And who am I to tell God how to use my testimony and how to use me to bring others to him? So by all means, you keep bringing me through it and I'll be okay with it. And the same can go for grief, for, bad situations. You can't really help people if you haven't walked through it yourself. It sucks sometimes. It's really uncomfortable to have to go through a lot of the hardships in life that we go through. It's difficult to have to balance financial issues and family issues and health issues all at the same time. But as I said in my last video, God doesn't work with deadlines. He works with lifelines. So if you're in a situation that you don't really understand how God's going to use it, if you don't really understand what the purpose of this situation is in your life, number one, ask God what he wants to do with that. Is it a situation where he's hoping to reveal something that you need to work on in yourself, or reveal something in your friends or family that you need to be aware of so that you can safeguard your own heart? Or, there's so many reasons why we go through certain things. And a lot of times it's just, that's how it is. And for people to say, oh, God wouldn't put me through that. God doesn't put us through anything. He allows certain things to happen. And a lot of people get that confused. Like, oh, well, he's the author of life. He controls everything. Yes, but, and we'll get to it later, the book of Job is all about Job being tested and God allowing it up to a certain point. God allows whatever to come. And that's not very encouraging. Like, oh, well, why is God allowing this to happen? Ask him. You'd be surprised how he will answer. Right now, I am going through a season of establishment, if you will. And I've got to establish a lot of things, but my faith in him, not that I don't have faith, but it needs to be solid. It needs to be foundational, like cornerstone levels of established. And that's, hey, I'm glad to be in the situation. Is it difficult? Yes, because God doesn't just grant us faith or patience or strength. He gives us the opportunity to do those things and to turn to him like, hey, I'm lacking always, because I'm human. I'm lacking. I need your help. Like, I want to do this the right way. I want to do this your way. And when we do that, that's where the real collaboration with God happens. And it's beautiful. But we have to kind of be in a rock and a hard place for certain types of things. Like, he'll give you the opportunity, but if you don't reach out to him, you don't ask, you don't seek him, that's your choice. And a lot of people forget, we're given free will. He does not control every aspect of every decision of everything in our lives. He knows the end from the beginning. He is the author of life. He has the scroll of our lives, in heaven. But we make the decisions at the end of the day, whether or not we want to be obedient or disobedient, whether we want to follow what he's laid out for us or not. And it's difficult. We're human. Temptation very often overcomes our willpower. That's how we work, unfortunately. We're not perfect. Jesus was. Jesus is. And that is why he could be the ultimate sacrifice. But we're not. And thank God for Jesus. Thank God for the Gospels and what they bring to us. So, all of that, I kind of meandered, sorry. All of that to say, ask God, okay, I'm in this situation. If he's answered, this is what I want you to learn, this is what I want you to get out of this, okay. Where are you going to throw me a lifeline? Like, I want to be able to recognize it. I want to be able to know it. I have faith that you will do it. I have, and you have to mean that too. You can't just say it. Like, you have to truly believe that God will give you those lifelines. Because it just said in Mark, Mark chapter 6, verse 5. And he could not do a miracle there at all because of their unbelief. It was because of the people in Nazareth and their unbelief. They didn't believe him. They thought he was crazy. Without the faith, he couldn't do the works. It's faith without works is dead. Yeah, but works without faith is nothing. You can't do the works without faith. He proves that when he heals the woman, your faith has made you well. When he heals all the people that touch his clothes at the end of the chapter, it's their faith that makes them well. They believe he can do it, so long as it is in his will. And it is. So that's another question for you. What are you disbelieving? What lie have you accepted that God won't do something when in reality he will? Like, I can say day after day, I see God moving in my life, and it's become much more, I don't want to say prevalent or abundant. He moves in my life every day, but I can recognize it so much more easily now. And it brings a lot of peace and comfort to me when I'm in a situation where I don't know what the next step is. To use a business metaphor, I'm running out of runway and I don't know how my plane's going to land. Or I'm running out of runway and I don't know how my plane's going to take off. I don't know how this situation is going to resolve itself. But I know the one who knows everything. And I know he's got a plan for it. I know he's got a solution for it. And I just have to trust him. And that deep faith, that belief that he will take care of it, and resisting the urge to be anxious or depressed or upset or ruminate, like the resistance to ruminate on the situation. It's hard. It is so hard. But that's the great thing about the Bible, is it gives us so many stories and examples that he does do these things, and gives us refuge in the fact that he keeps his promises all day, every day. If he didn't, the world would cease to exist. He said, "Let there be light." If he said, never mind, like, you guys. So, yeah, where can God bring you? Where can he throw you a lifeline in your life? Where can you trust him that you haven't been trusting him recently? Be honest with yourself. It's difficult, but write it down and talk to him. Like, I have a prayer journal. You can purchase one if you want to. If you don't, that's fine. But the purpose of that prayer journal is to get comfortable talking to God. Writing it down helps so much too. You write it down, because I don't know about you, but I'm much more willing to write certain things than I am to say it. And I don't know why. My brain's weird, but that's the way it is. Write those things down. Give them to him. Say, "God, I'm giving all this to you." Be honest. Tell him that you're angry. Tell him that you're upset. Tell him that you don't see how he's going to do this, but you trust that he will. Trust me. He wants that. He wants that communication. He wants that honest, open relationship with you. And you will be amazed what he will do in your life when you do talk to him like that, and when you do bring him in to that kind of confidence. It's indescribable. Like, there's no words. So, in the meantime, you guys stay blessed, stay bold, and I will see you in the next one. And if you made it this far, comment down below. Is there anything that you guys want me to discuss specifically? Like, obviously I want to discuss the goals of this channel and, maybe talk about some of the blogs I've posted. But do you guys have any questions for me so far? Because I'd love to be able to answer them. Thanks. Be blessed. Stay bold.